Star Wars, best place for below average Star Wars.
Hello there, and welcome to the Star Wars Show, a UK-based Star Wars podcast with in-depth discussions and analysis sprinkled with some silliness. I am the Geordie Jedi Pete.
And I am Jason Hondo Ling.
And we are your two-man announce team, your two pilots in the cockpit, taking you through the Star Wars news this week. And Jace, this is probably going to be our last stop doing Star Wars news before Maul Shadow Lord debuts on the 6th, and then we'll go fully into Darth Maul Shadow Lord reviews. Are you excited to talk the news one last time before we hit brand new Star Wars?
Yeah, so always excited to talk Star Wars and always excited to talk about Star Wars animation. So, I'm really looking forward to when we can start talking about Maul. The more I see, the more I'm getting excited about this series, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Certainly it's going to be great, and as soon as those episodes start dropping, we will be jumping on to record our review episodes. We'll be putting theirs on, but that's not here yet, and there is some Star Wars news to talk about, and let's dive straight in. And we're going to dive straight into Star Wars Starfighter, and Ryan Gosling's been teasing a fun scene involving a creature. Basically, while promoting Project Hail Mary on BBC Radio, Ryan Gosling shared a story about a fun scene on the set of Star Wars Starfighter that involved a creature that wasn't even supposed to matter all that much. What he said was, "There was a thing that happened on Star Wars. I'm going to have to tread carefully, but I went to the creature shop early to see everything that they were building so that I could find ways to interact with them in the film, because I didn't want them to just be going by in the background. And I found one very special one that was meant to be background, and I asked if I could have a scene with it, and it ended up being one of the most fun scenes I've ever done." He also said, "As my wrap present, they made me a model, and so I have it in my house now," which is pretty awesome. Obviously, Star Wars Starfighter lands in cinemas on May the 28th, 2027, so we're still over a year away from the movie coming out. I've seen some of that chatter about like how they've seen they're using practical effects. I mean, Star Wars uses lots of every Star Wars has practical effects, and every Star Wars has a lot of CGI as well, and digital effects, and it's a blending of them together. That's what makes Star Wars magical. But it was good. What I loved about this story was the fact that he obviously takes his craft very serious. I love Ryan Gosling. I think he's a great actor. I think the fact that he's gone to see what was in the creature workshop to be like, right, what is it in here? Like, what am I going to be working with? You can see like how many arms has it got, where's its head, how many eyes, so you can sort of understand how he will be looking, how he will be acting around different creatures that are of course characters, and almost co-stars, you could say. So yeah, I love the fact that he took it that seriously, and I love the fact that when he's seen one he thought was particularly interesting, and he's like, well, actually this one I would love to work with. They've made it happen, and then I love the fact that they look after him at the end by giving him it as a wrap present, as a model. But Jace, your thoughts on Ryan Gosling's interview about the creatures in Star Wars Starfighter?
Yeah, I'm glad that Ryan's actually talking about this, because it's something that with the last two events that I went to in Fordingbridge, obviously there was a lot of guys there from the creature shops that worked on the different films and everything, and you see all these amazing creatures on the screen, and you don't actually realise how much work goes into bringing them to life. And it's great that as an actor, he's realised this, and before he started filming, he's gone in and found out what they had to play with, and what potentially was going to be in the film. And obviously, as a lot of these creatures, there's a lot of very skilled puppeteers that are working to bring these characters to life, and they're actors in their own rights. Many of them go without any sort of recognition. So him talking about obviously one that he fell in love with and wanted to work with, that's really great, and I'm looking forward to seeing what if we can guess what this creature is when we see it on the screen. And, you know, I'm sure there'll be lots of creatures that he's interacting with, but obviously this one was slightly special. And, you know, hats off to the guys that create all these things, you know, and Neil Scanlon works brilliantly creating all these different creatures. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they've brought to life and seeing how Ryan interacts with it. Because having talked to some of these puppeteers, there's a lot that goes on that we never understand.
Indeed, and sometimes there's 2 or 3 puppeteers controlling one creature. Obviously, we're not quite sure on the scale of this creature, so we don't know. But one thing I would like to say is I have not seen Project Hail Mary yet, but it's getting fantastic reviews across the board. Obviously, a big part of the movie is Ryan Gosling interacting with this sort of rock creature called Rocky. And if I'm not mistaken, people at ILM and the team have developed that, so it might have been Neil Scanlon or someone else related to the crew. But so
It was Neil. Neil's been heavily involved with Project Hail Mary as well. I think it was one of the first projects that Creature Shops worked on that wasn't a Star Wars project.
So there we go. So he's worked with this team and with creatures like this on Project Hail Mary, which I hopefully will be watching in the next week or so. But like I said, it's getting fantastic reviews, and it seems like Ryan had a great time on Project Hail Mary, working with the creature effects team, working with creatures, and then he's brought that straight into working on Star Wars Starfighter, which is absolutely wonderful. I also heard Ryan Gosling talking about, we asked him about Tom Cruise obviously turning up on set and then filming some scenes. Ryan said that he actually wasn't there. One of the few days he wasn't filming because he was there for most of the days. So he was a bit jealous that he missed out, and he confirmed that he thinks that Tom Cruise turn up did direct some scenes featuring his young co-star. So any thoughts on that, Jason?
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see again. You know, if we can pick out, I'm sure it'll become public knowledge what scene it is. But yeah, it's quite interesting. Obviously, you know, if he's getting involved with behind the scenes, so we're going to see Tom Cruise in a future Star Wars epic.
And I certainly would be up for that. So Project Hail Mary's in cinemas now, and Gosling does star in Star Wars Starfighter, landing in cinemas on May the 28th, 2027. Keeping things Star Wars movie-based, Sigourney Weaver has revealed that her Star Wars character links to Princess Leia. So yes, we now know Sigourney Weaver, of course, will play the New Republic's Colonel Ward in The Mandalorian and Grogu, and she has revealed a close connection that her character has with one of the Rebellion's most important icons, that is, of course, the late Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia. She says that they go way back. What's your thoughts on that, Jason?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Obviously, the one thing is Princess Leia was heavily involved with the rebellion when um, the original series, and obviously there's a lot of characters that we wouldn't have seen her interact with on screen, but that she would have interacted with at different events, like the sort of things that you see in the comic books and that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to find out the history and the history with Leia that this character has, because obviously it sounds like it's going to be alluded to and talked about in um, the Mandalorian and Grogu film. So yeah, I'm quite looking forward to finding out how she is linked to Leia, and obviously it's nice that the character of Leia is going to be brought into this story as well, because obviously we know at this time she would have still been about and very active.
Yeah, so in this time frame, I imagine she is probably part of the New Republic government at this time. Um, yeah, and just so some descriptions have come out. So Colonel Ward has been described as a military leader, a crack pilot. Um, Obviously, Sigourney said that we go way back when she referenced Princess Leia. According to Lucasfilm co-president Dave Filoni, Ward is part of a vital group of fearless female rebel leaders that include Leia, of course. It also includes Admiral Holdo, of course, played by Laura Dern in Star Wars The Last Jedi. It also includes Star Wars Rebels, and of course Ahsoka's Hera Syndulla, and Andor's, and of course the original trilogy's Mon Mothma. What Filoni said was, these women obviously really went through it during the Age of Rebellion and were instrumental in defeating and dismantling the Empire, which of course we do know that. What's your thoughts on maybe we seeing Colonel Ward interact with the likes of certainly Hera Syndulla, certainly Mon Mothma? Not quite sure about Admiral Holdo, but could be in there.
Do you know what? Admiral Holdo is one of the ones that I would really like to see surprise us and pop up, but I think it would have leaked if Laura Dern was appearing. Um, but she was a character that I think, obviously, because of her heroic actions in the film, we didn't get to see as much as I would have liked to have seen of her. Because Laura Dern is an amazing actress, and I've got a lot of respect for her. So she's someone that I'd love to see pop up. Obviously, Hera is one that could possibly pop up, especially if it links into the Thrawn storyline. It would make sense for her to appear, and it could be a nice little link to the Ahsoka story. She is one of the characters that would link it very well. So yeah, there's so many different characters that they could bring in, and I'd like to think that there could be some that they've managed to keep on the down low, so to speak, so that we do have some nice little Easter egg surprises, similarly to what they did with Maul in Solo.
Indeed, I think that is the case because if you look at who we've seen, it's mainly like people we've already seen from the Mandalorian journey. That makes sense in the trailer. But Sigourney went on to say, to be playing someone who is from that time and from that history, who would have been a cohort of these guys, is a great honour. She's referred to those other characters. She sort of went on to say that, the 70s, all the unrest, fighting against the Vietnam War, people had that sense of unity. It clicks into a whole thing for George Lucas, and I'm the same generation, and she's loved tying that into her portrayal of Cornel Word, and it's sort of the narrative theme of the movie and what she's gone with. So great stuff there. Any final words on the Mandalorian Grogu, bud?
Just I can't wait.
Well, it's not long now. The Mandalorian Grogu arrives in the cinemas on May 22nd, 2026. So, this coming week it will turn to April, and then we'll only be 1 month away from May. And we're right on the doorstep of this movie, which is absolutely fantastic. Keeping it sort of Mandalorian based a little bit, Temuera Morrison, who is of course Django and Boba Fett, has been talking about returning as Boba Fett. He referenced being shelved, and he's like a jar of peaches. He made a cool little joke here. So yes, in a new interview with Temuera Morrison, he's promoting his latest film, The Bluff. The Boba Fett actor confirmed his Star Wars return is still on hold. I'm shelved, that's all, like a jar of peaches. When it does get opened, I'm going to come out sweeter, darling. So it's good to see him talking about that, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I think obviously Boba Fett and Temuera's portrayal of Boba Fett was very integral to the Mandalorian and the Mandalorian story, I felt. And then obviously we've had the Book of Boba Fett, which was its own standalone. And then obviously since then we haven't really seen Temuera in Star Wars or Temuera playing Boba Fett either. Obviously, if the Mandalorian and Grogu are looking for friends to help them, if they need friends in this movie, Boba Fett certainly is a friend who has helped them in the past and has no problem getting involved with blasters, with Slave One, with his fists. He will come and he will turn up and he will be vicious. Do you think we'll see Boba Fett in The Mandalorian and Grogu?
Again, he's one of those characters that, like you say, is quite integral to the Mando story. And, it wouldn't surprise me if he appeared and, Temuera is great at, he's a great raconteur, and he's also great at feeding a line. So I could quite easily see him sort of telling us that he's not involved, to throw us off the scent, sort of thing. So that it's a nice surprise if he is. Obviously, he's popped up in like Obi-Wan, in the Kenobi series where he played the clone trooper. Obviously in Ahsoka, I think he was there to do the voices for the all the clone troopers and Rex. So there's a potential for him to appear in so much. Temuera's a great actor. I've always had a lot of time for him, and would love to see more of him. So I would love to see him appear in The Mandalorian and Grogu. I personally really enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. I know a lot of people struggled with it. For me, I enjoyed it. I've rewatched it several times, and it's one of those I'd like to see more done with Boba, and Fennec Shand, if they ever get the chance. So if they take that tin of peaches off the shelf, I will be very happy, and it will be very sweet.
Indeed. I think with sort of the Mandalorian being directly involved with the New Republic, and sort of it seems like the New Republic's going to have a big part of the narrative in this movie. I tend to think Boba Fett might not want to get involved with the New Republic, so that's why he might be sort of sidelined a bit here. But after the Mandalorian and Grogu, who knows where the story goes there, and I think Boba definitely has a place in this timeline in telling the stories in this era. I think maybe just might not be in this movie because of that, I imagine. And I bet, it's funny, we got so much Temuera so quickly, as you've said. We had the Mandalorian seasons, we had the Book of Boba Fett itself. He was in Kenobi, he was in Ahsoka as sort of just filling in for a clone. Not really big roles, you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden it's gone away, and we sort of, the storylines have gone elsewhere. Starfighter's in the future. This movie's going to tie into the New Republic, so maybe he's not going to be involved. So it is sort of strange from being everything then being nothing, but I think the projects don't really necessarily match what he would be in, if that makes sense. But time will tell. If there is one that he does match, it's possibly this one, so we will see. Keeping it on actors who are talking about returning to roles, John Boyega has revealed he has spoken to Dave Filoni about a possible Finn return. So yes, he sparked excitement about a possible return to Star Wars during a panel at MegaCon Orlando when asked about reprising his role of Finn. A fan shouted, "Get Dave on the phone," and the actor responded, "I actually have, actually." Yes, other than that, he didn't really reference it at all. I mean, what I would say is that with a Rey New Jedi Order film sort of in development, that's what we'll say, it's in development, I suppose you would have to tie in Finn to that story, or tie in why he's not there. If that makes sense. So either way, they're gonna have to reach out to John Boyega to discuss those things. Obviously, it was just a sort of a fan response that he's responded with a sort of a one sentence flippant remark. I don't think he's telling lies. I think he probably has spoken to someone, as I said. But what's your thoughts? Do you think Boyega is returning to a galaxy far, far away soon, or do you think it's still in the very early stages of development?
I think it'd be in the very early stages of development. I don't think it's going to happen any time in the very near future. There's so much going on behind the scenes that we don't know about, that I'm sure Filoni's having lots of chats with lots of people, because I'm pretty sure they're going to be drawing up a plan that will probably be revealed next year at Celebration of exactly where Star Wars is heading after Starfighter. Star Wars, I definitely don't think is going to go away. I think with the new leadership at Disney and at Lucasfilm, there's the potential for it to become a very exciting time, because I think there's going to be a reinvigorated thirst for productivity within the Star Wars universe. And obviously, the sequel characters, the likes of John Boyega, and obviously Ray with Daisy and Isaac um, coming back, Oscar Isaac's coming back possibly as Poe. That would be one that I would really like to see. Um, but yeah, there's so many possibilities as with Star Wars. There always is, and there always will be. And there's lots and lots of stories to be told.
There is indeed. I just hope they get it like they need to decide what he is before they get him involved. Because obviously, it's funny because he's outspoken a few ways where like he didn't like how he was portrayed, maybe like in the Last Jedi and stuff. But it's a bit like, well, in the Force Awakens you weren't a Jedi because it was never hinted at like you had the Force, and that was J.J. Abrams. And in the Last Jedi that was hinted at again, and they carried your storyline over as being like going back to face the First Order, which was I thought was a good storyline. And then it wasn't until the Rise of Skywalker when JJ comes back and then he makes him a Jedi. But it's like there's this narrative that like, oh, JJ was always going to do that, but like JJ didn't put any of that at all in the Force Awakens. So, and I felt it was forced into the Rise of Skywalker. Like, oh, I have actually got the Force. I felt it a little bit. It was a bit like, oh, have you though? Because you didn't bring it up in the first movie. Like, so we'll see. But I think because they've done that in the Rise of Skywalker, I think when we do the Rey movie, if that does actually see the light of day, then you have to reference like he's either there as part of it or he's not, and why is he not? Something's obviously happened, and they'll have to reference that. But time will tell. I think that's pretty much it for film news and actors in movies. We're going to talk about the 2026 Disney Legends Awards. I was very pleased to see Bob Iger getting in for leadership, which is very important. But yes, I think Star Wars wise, Alan Tudyk is the one who is also becoming a Disney legend. I thought that was pretty cool. He's obviously Alan Tudyk was the voice of K2SO. He was also on set for the motion capture. What's your thoughts on Alan Tudyk being listed as one of the 2026 Disney legends?
Oh, Alan Tudyk is one of my all-time favourite actors, not just for Star Wars, because as a Firefly fan, I'm really excited about the recent news that we had, that there's an animated series coming, bringing back the characters from Firefly. Really is really exciting, and that someone like Alan is being recognised. He created an awesome droid character on the scale of what Anthony Daniels did with the original C-3PO. But again, a very different type of droid. Similarly, to be fair, I enjoyed what Phoebe Waller-Bridge did with the droid character in Solo. I think she should be recognised as well, because they bring these characters to life. Obviously, Alan with the motion capture, and obviously Anthony in the suit, but also with the voice and the characterizations, and just the timing and everything. So I think it's great, and obviously Bob Iger, he was always going to be, in some ways, I think Bob's above a Disney legend, a bit like Michael Eisner. They both gave so much to Disney, and led it into, very lucrative and, good times. Also dealing with some quite big issues over the years. So yeah, I think it had to happen with Bob. And I have to admit, from what I'm hearing about the new team that have come in, I'm looking forward to the future with Disney at the moment. I think, to me, there seems to be a lot of confidence in the people that have been put in charge.
It certainly does. Keeping things Disney related, the Disney store and the Disney parks obviously announced that Star Wars Day. It's obviously coming on May the 4th, as we know. And the Star Wars May the 4th merch is coming. There's been some nice little promotional videos and images go out across all Disney and Star Wars channels. But yes, the 2026 May the 4th logo collection is coming to DisneyStore.com from April 4th in the USA and on May the 4th at the Walt Disney World Resort, Disneyland Resort, and Disney stores in Europe, themed to the upcoming Star Wars film The Mandalorian and Grogu, which is obviously coming to cinemas on May the 22nd, as I've already said. Or some sort of a green tinge to the May the 4th Be With You logo. Mando's featured, Grogu's featured. We've got Ahsoka featured on some of them. There's caps, there's hoodies, there's tote bags, there's t-shirts. And yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on the May the 4th collections. Obviously, they are all dated, like 2026, so that is pretty cool to get your hands on.
Yeah, there's quite a selection of stuff. I've seen it gradually drip feeding through. I think they did a launch event earlier this week, and there's some really cool sort of stuff. I'm always on the lookout for good Star Wars merch. So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to have a look and see what I can get a hold of in different pieces. Because I do need to add to my Star Wars wardrobe at the moment.
So obviously over here in the UK, there's obviously only 2 Disney stores, I believe. Well, 1 Disney store in the UK, sorry, and that is in London, and then I believe there's another Disney store in Ireland. But so the best place is the Disney store online. But items include the 2026 May the 4th logo collection all cotton tee. We have a zip hoodie featuring a 2026 logo on the front with character art on the back. We have a May the 4th Be With You 2026 hat, the Mandalorian inspired tote with an interior keyring and zip pocket, and a May the 4th Be With You 2026 pin featuring Ahsoka Tano. Also, starting April 10th, 2026, Disney Store will launch a new Star Wars themed collection every Friday leading up to May the 4th. Here's the lineups on April 10th. It will be Endor related. On April 17th, a new collection featuring Stormtroopers will come. Then on April 24th, a new collection that is just jerseys will come out. And May the 1st will be pod racing themed. And then, of course, May the 4th, we will have the full launch. So if you're after some apparel, Jace, it looks like you're going to have 4 different days to get some even before May the 4th comes. So that should be pretty good. So happy hunting for you, bud. Does that sound exciting?
It definitely does. And, I'm always... It's funny, I've just been having a peek at some of the stuff that's online, and yeah, there's some goodies that I might have to treat myself to. And obviously, May, I've got a birthday coming up, so I can put in a request.
You certainly can. Keeping things Disney and Star Wars merch related, of course, one thing the Disney parks have in abundance is the awesome Legacy lightsabers. Obviously, Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord is coming out on May the 4th, April 6th, and finishes on May the 4th. And as we mentioned in our sort of last episode where we talked all about the latest Maul trailer, obviously Devon Izara, who is sort of the Jedi character who's going to be maybe torn towards the dark side of Maul in that series, or the Devon Izara limited edition Legacy lightsaber from Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord has been revealed. Does look very awesome. So yes, the official site has revealed that Devon Izara limited edition Legacy lightsaber hilt from Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord. It's limited to 3,000 pieces. It's packed in a themed collectible box with exclusive limited edition lithograph and individually numbered card. And sort of what the Disney people are saying is every year we love surprising our guests with new limited edition Legacy lightsaber releases. Since 2019, we've introduced Legacy lightsaber hilts from across the Star Wars galaxy, spanning the films, animated series, Disney Plus live action series, video games, and even publishing. For our spring 2026 line, we are just as excited for more Shadow Lord as the fans are. I don't know if you've seen this, Jason, but the box looks awesome, the lightsaber looks cool, the card looks awesome, looks like just a really cool get if you can get your hands on it.
I am looking at it as we speak. As you know, I do love me lightsabers. I love the leather grip that it's got around it. It does look like a very awesome looking saber. Yeah, it's good. Obviously, I tend to go for the not official sabers, but the ones more for dueling. But this one does look rather nice as a display piece.
Certainly does. It is packed in a themed collectible box with magnetic lid closure and lined interior. This newest legacy lightsaber includes film realistic sound effects and an attachable lightsaber blade that's obviously sold separately. And the lithograph showcases both Maul and Devon, a pairing that has us all eager to see how their relationship evolves in this series. Devon's lightsaber hilt is incredible, and we know fans will be thrilled to wield her lightsaber for themselves, is what they're saying over Disney. As I mentioned, it's limited to 3,000 units globally, and each one comes with an individually numbered card. These obviously available in Galaxy's Edge, both East Coast and West Coast, but I do know that they do go on the Disney stores in certain countries in the UK, usually get some. But yes, the Devon Izara limited edition lightsaber launches on April 6th, 2026, aligning with the 2 debut episodes of Maul Shadow Lord on Disney+. So that sounds pretty cool. Keeping things merch related, but not really merch, this is more collectible, I suppose. And it's very expensive. That is a C-3PO head from The Empire Strikes Back. It beat estimates at the Propstore auction and went for a record amount of money. So yes, at this week's Propstore Entertainment Memorabilia Live auction in LA, the light-up C-3PO head from Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, the only known example to appear on the collector market, beat estimates at between $350,000 and $700,000, and it sold for $1,058,400. So in pounds, that's around £790,440, which is a big money. It's funny, I'll probably mention at the end, I'm a big wrestling fan. Hulk Hogan's boots from WrestleMania 1, I think it was, have just sold for over $1 million as well in the US. So collectibles are just going through the roof since the initial spike of collectibles in the pandemic era, and they're only getting more and more expensive. So yes, the C-3PO head, it is the only known example of the fictional droid's head to appear on the collector market. And yeah, it was a top lot at the auction, which also saw the harpoon gun used by actor Robert Shaw in Jaws, which was accompanied by its original case, and that only went for, $327,600. But yes, at Propstore, Star Wars material continues to resonate with collectors, and the C-3PO head from The Empire Strikes Back was a real highlight of the day. The Jaws collection also delivered an impressive overall result, coming just after the film's 50th anniversary and reflecting its enduring appeal with collectors. What's your thoughts on whichever lucky person got this fantastic piece of Star Wars memorabilia, and what's your thoughts just on how much these pieces go for now?
It's crazy the sort of price that some of these things go for, but obviously they are one-off, unique pieces that mean a lot to a lot of people. A classic example is the story of, years ago, Han Solo's blaster went for huge amounts of money. And when you talk to people that have worked on Star Wars, especially the original trilogy, or in particular A New Hope, obviously they really didn't expect it to be the success. So much stuff got thrown away or just went home with the crew. So, there's bits and pieces that could be all over the place. So this is obviously a very unique piece. And some lucky person, has got 3PO's head. I would assume the lights still work. It's something that, certainly going to be the talk of the dinner party if they have friends around. And, it just goes to show there's demand, the harpoon gun as well. I'm a huge Jaws fan. When I saw that harpoon gun was up for sale, I thought that would be an awesome thing to have in your collection if you could afford it. Hats off to whoever managed to get it. They were very lucky.
They certainly were. And that brings an end to the Star Wars news I had lined up for discussion this week, Jace. Is there anything Star Wars news related you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
Well, I'm going to talk about something that you knew I was going to talk about. I had a lovely little purchase this week. I did see it. It's been in little supermarkets for the last few weeks, and I resisted, but the inner child in me let go, and it's Lego as usual, but they've got a lovely little thing in there at the moment. It's a Lego Star Wars like comic book, um, three different stories, all relating to Luke Skywalker, and it's called Lego Star Wars Stories from the Galaxy. But what being Lego, what makes it great is it comes with um, not just a little minifigure, which I think is a really cool minifigure. It's Luke Skywalker. I think it's in like the Endor khaki type uniform, but it also comes with one of the micro build of the Endor speeder bike. So you've obviously got the Luke Skywalker figure that can then sit on the speeder bike, and it's $2.99, which, as we know, to collect minifigures and stuff like that, it's a really reasonable little buy. And whether you buy it for your kids or, as I have treated myself, yeah, highly recommend that.
Awesome stuff. I did have a birthday in the past week, so I did get a few Star Wars related gifts. So in the Star Wars The Black Series, I did get from Star Wars The Mandalorian, it was like a droid pack, so you did get R5D4, you got BD72, and you got two pit droids filled with loads of accessories. So these are obviously the droids that are in Pelimotto's workshop. And it does say Pelimotto makes quick work of refueling and repairing battered ships with the help of R5D4, BD72, and a team of hyperactive pit droids. So this looks really cool. It's a really nice set. R5 looks brilliant in Black Series. And I believe R5 was only available as a GameStop exclusive back in the day. So, yeah, got R5 here. Comes with all the tools that can go into R5 as well as a mechanic droid. And it comes with the jet boosters to go into R5, as seen in that episode when they go to Mandalore and they're on the shattered glass planet. And then I did also get a fantastic. So, if anybody hasn't read the novelization of Revenge of the Sith by Matthew Stover, so I have that, a copy of that from when I was, 16 when that movie came out. But they've just recently released a very special version of the book. So, for those who don't know, the book was obviously in development and written during the filming of Revenge of the Sith, so the book sort of came out with the movie. And with it being such a such a big deal, that movie, it was very much the end of Star Wars as we knew it at the time. Matthew Stover would have to turn in parts of his script, and George would send him notes and stuff, and you directly work with George on it and things like that. So in this book, the new book, it's the book's fantastically made. It comes with fantastic art on the cover, on the insides. And then also what is awesome is on each page now, which wasn't available in the original one, it has Matthew Stover's annotations. So he has notes on the bottom of the page about aspects of certain parts of what you're reading. So it could be just reflecting on something in there and how it reflects the movie. It could be something in there about how it reflects something George left a note for him on. So I haven't read it yet, but that I did get that for my birthday, and I'm very excited to read that. I think they want £50 for the book in Waterstones, but I did find my partner found it on Amazon for a bit cheaper, so maybe check that out. But yeah, that's sort of my Star Wars purchases over the last week. I wouldn't say purchases because they were both gifts from my awesome family and friends, so thank you very much. I appreciate that. Jason, the episode, this is anything else Star Wars you want to talk about?
It's funny, you've just reminded me of obviously when the prequels came out, as you said, they were releasing the books, and the books were quite often coming out before the TV series, before the films. And I can remember Revenge of the Sith. I read the book before I even went to the cinema. And it's one of those experiences that if you get the chance to read those novelizations, there's so much detail in those that really increase your viewing of the films. And if you get a chance, do it, because it is an experience you really want to have.
It certainly is. Jason, where can the people find you on social media?
At Hondoling, as always.
If any of our listeners are professional wrestling fans, they love the good old graps, as I call it. Myself and my good bud Luke, we've started a new podcast called Singlets and Suplexes. It is a pro wrestling podcast, and we talk about the past week in pro wrestling before diving into sports entertainment nostalgia. So please check that out. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music, and you can find it on Instagram at SAS Wrestling Pod. You can find everywhere where Star Wars is on social media in the episode description of this episode. Jace, thank you very much for joining me this week.
Always good to catch up.
It is indeed. Listeners, thank you very much for listening. The next time we speak, we will have watched the first few episodes of Maul, Shadow Lord, and that is going to be absolutely fantastic. May the Force be with you all, and remember, always tell that to Kanja Club.